was shocked at one thing, which has me questioning now the outcome of this fight. Terence Bud Crawford in person was absolutely taller, which we know, but looked like a bigger man. He looked at least 10 or 20 pounds heavier. His frame was bigger. He has his head, like his skeletal structure, like he looked like a bigger dude. And it really made me be like, well, isn't that Canelo's only advantage in this fight is his size?
The rematch between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford have been among the most talked about occasions in boxing, particularly following its initial 2023 confrontation in which Crawford defeats Spence handily to emerge as the unchallenged welterweight champion following Crawford's commanding display in which he halted Spence during the 9th round. The boxing community couldn't help but wonder, what will happen to these two combatants next? Over a year has passed since their initial conflict, but the potential for the rematch is more alluring than ever, and it might occur this time as the weight was made in a higher weight class. Significantly more weighty when these two nearly into a fight when they finally met. Spence has made it apparent that he's arriving to exact revenge.
There's no Triple G on Bud's resume. There's no Trout on Bud's resume. There's no Daniel Jacobs on Bud's resume. Canelo is the one that's fought the elite level opposition. It's Canelo that fought Laura. There is no Laura on Bud's resume. There is no Laura on Bud's resume. Bud has never faced a multiple division champ. Bud has never faced a multiple division champ.
Yeah, but Bud is an elite boxer.
So you're an elite boxer, but you haven't fought elite boxers.
The initial altercation was all of the fans' wishes and more. Considering Crawford as the underdog entering the fight demonstrated why he's regarded as one of the top boxers in terms of weight in the world-renowned combatant renowned for his grit and tenacity were just insufficient. Because of Crawford's adaptability and quickness, the battle was a declaration. Crawford's victory wasn't only made him the greatest world welterweight champion, but also confirmed his status as one of the best warriors of his generation. But in following the fight, a rematch was constantly on the cards, particularly given Spence's inability to accept the result and his conviction that he could make things better in a second fight.
They talk all the crazy stuff about me going up and having a tough time, but he went up in weight and lost. That's the difference. I went up weight and won. He went up and lost. You know, so let's not do.
For Spence, it was hard for him to accept loss. Enter the initial battle as the favorite controlling the years in the welterweight division. But despite being extremely fit and despite having extraordinary power, he was unable to figure out how to handle Crawford's talent. Pointed out Spence's injuries. Before the altercation with reports, implying that Spence had experienced a retinal tear and was having trouble with the aftermath of a 2019 vehicle collision. Despite these difficulties, he continued to going into the ring, but the amount of damage there was a noticeable sparkle in his performance. Has subsequently stated that he wasn't present at his best, and that he has taken the required modifications to ensure he's prepared for the rematch.
No, Alvarez thinks you're not a 54-pounder. In other words, you say, nah, he's too small.
That's his take. There's a reason why Israel was so respectful in the fight. Anytime I let my hands go, he either grab me or move. For the bigger guy, you should have been walking me down. You should have been bullying me. Canelo can say what he say.
He just doesn't feel like you're a 54-pounder.
Now fast forward to the rematches scheduled for 2025. Horizon. But a big shift has occurred. Crawford in the air after gaining muscle, notably for a potential battle. In opposition to Canelo Alvarez is seeking to go ahead and wait as this presents anew the rematch, as it could currently be dynamic occur in the junior middleweight division. The choice of division Crawford to advance. It's not totally unexpected that he's been so careful about his weight. Management during his professional life and at 35, he's prepared to put his body to the test. Advancing to a new weight class and facing at 154 or any other weight, Spence could alter the fight's overall dynamic. Since Spence is inherently larger and more cozy at this weight, this might provide him with a benefit, but it also makes way for a more thrilling Crawford's version, who will bring more strength and expertise against bigger rivals.
my accomplishment just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he did.
Among the best aspects of the rematch is the revitalized confidence in the two combatants. Spence, who has long been renowned for being unrelenting, has now acknowledged that he wasn't really ready for the difficulties Crawford posed, and he's made it apparent in their first altercation that he has been putting a lot of effort into his method, his training, and his comprehensive strategy to steer clear of the same errors he had previously made.
I just wanted to prove to the world that I was better than what they say I was, because given the fact that how great I looked against each opponent, they say, oh, well, he wasn't nothing, or he was this, he was that, because how talented I am.
Right.
So they didn't want to give me no credit because I passed all my tests with flying colors.
Spence is aware that he possesses the ability to harm anybody within the division. But, additionally, he understands that Crawford's the IQ of boxers is so high that they can withstand. Spence's chance in this rematch is concentrating on strengthening his defense and confirming that he can tolerate Crawford's piercing counterpunch. His confidence is skyrocketing, and he's completely believing he can defeat Crawford in a rematch if he follows his strategy.
So, along my career, I've been criticized, and people have taken credit away from me just to try to diminish my accomplishments, just off of pure hate. So, what would they be able to say with me going up 2 weight classes? If Canelo become undisputed again, and I beat Canelo, what could they say? They'll say something, but
They gonna find.
Conversely, Crawford is not unfamiliar with confidence, given that he's the person who demonstrated their abilities in the first fight for him. The purpose of the rematch is not demonstrating to the world what it's about. Crawford is still constructing his legacy, has a reputation for being calm in the ring and his mental faculties several paces ahead of his rivals. This man doesn't give up easily. He's constantly searching for ways to get better, and he understands completely that at the second triumph over Spence would raise him to an even greater degree, similar to. What's interesting about Canelo, though, is how increasing his weight will impact his performance. It's possible that he could be slowed down by excess weight, yet, considering his careful attention to training and his determination to obtain the ideal ratio of power to speed, it's difficult to see Crawford as anything ill-prepared.
You're a people's champ.
Yes.
I have nothing but respect for you. The question I have is, Errol alluded to wanting a rematch clause, but he asked, would you do it at 154? Is that your call, or is that the promoter's call, and would you even think about moving up to 154 to fight him?
Okay, so first of all, I need you to say I'm a loser.
Let's go! I'll never say that.
Additionally, there's the potential that the rematch will result in a completely distinct kind of battle. That was Crawford's first victory over Spence, was the consequence of the capacity to outbox Spence when he chooses him, separated with accurate shots while regulating the fight's tempo. But Crawford's bulking is being done for what could change. Canelo is accustomed to using more weight when fighting, and he is known for being a lot of more powerful combatant in terms of physique. He has more muscle and lifts weights like 154. Junior middleweight bulk and his power might have an even bigger role in a possible rematch.
Terence Crawford, we'll start here, reportedly offers Spence the rematch at 147 and not 154. This has got people up in arms because you have the Spence contingent who says, you know what, our guy Spence made concessions to have to get this fight done. He gave up a lot of money on his side to have this fight at 147. If you look at the contract, this is a sport of contracts. Chris, you know this.
For Crawford modifying the key will be style for a new weight class. He is renowned for being fluid and adaptability, and those attributes that will enable him to keep on flourish despite carrying a greater weight. But without a doubt, he will need to be even more adamant and defensive, particularly since Spence will be searching for his strength to enforce his will. The background of this battle has additionally been formed by the shifting terrain of the by 2025. The welterweight category will talent abounds in the weight class. But it seems as though these two men are the division is still at the top of the slightly shifting with new candidates ascending. But it's evident that Crawford, Spence and Spence continue to be the names that everyone's attention is on.
And I pretty much don't want to hear nothing about Terence Crawford and the word greatness after the news that just came out. Let me get this straight. You were the man that said, Earl, I gotta thank you. Earl say, why? Your response was, because this fight never would have happened if it wasn't for you. Now when it's your turn to do what Earl did for you, you playing boxing politics. Talking about 147 and nothing. But you was the guy saying that it was hard for you to make it to 147, so yeah, you want to fight at 154 also.
At this moment, dude, you Philly, you know, that's kind of. It's difficult to describe being back over. Within the United States and then entering. When I was there were some favorable winds. Had some favorable breezes prior to my departure. I had the best win there, in most likely history. Therefore, I'll feel excellent, man. When will the rematch go place? Happen? I swear, this is crazy. Jaron Boots Enos's unadulterated skill and emerging talent is Virgil Ortiz Jr. Both have been waiting in the wings for years. But neither has been put to the test like Spence or Crawford, and until they will remain in a supporting role to the division's established elite. Because of this, the rematch between, even more significant, are Spence and Crawford. The battle is what will decide the actual welterweight champion and junior middleweight weight classes provide in the rematch, Errol Spence. But at 147, currently, there are a few explanations. The reason behind Terence Crawford's actions, and there's also the bigger boxing, Crawford. Setting to contemplate Saudi Arabia's. Sport-related investments have changed how and the locations of these fights. Although there have always been important cash in boxing, the financial infusion into it is thanks to the sport that battles like this one should be much more significant spectacles, regardless of whether the rematch occurs in the Middle East or somewhere else. Prominent location with the support of these additional revenue streams are only going to intensify the conflict even further. This battle may turn out to be one of the largest gathering fans in recent memory from around the globe and delivering a degree of enthusiasm for boxing that has gone for years.
Errol gave him the opportunity when he didn't have to. He sacrificed some things. So, in my opinion, you gotta just do what you gotta do. I think that 54 is it's 7 pounds north, and it does make a difference. Errol Spence is an incredible fighter, and Crawford is too. If that's what Errol wants to do, to fight the rematch.
As of everything now suggests a massive. Both combatants are motivated for a rematch, are self-assured and both eager for the importance of legacy or redemption increasing, is merely an additional layer to this already. Spence has an intriguing story. It's an opportunity to go past his loss and demonstrate his continued dominance over Terence Crawford. Is a combatant who has accomplished so much of his career is now undeniable. In two distinct weight classes that capture titles across several divisions and keeping a perfect record so far as he enters the latter phases of his career. The criticism pertaining to his resume, especially from boxing enthusiasts and analysts, appear to keep up their Crawford has discovered a way to live with. But he has now determined that it's time to set his own path without concern regarding other people's viewpoints. Man.
Errol Spence the rematch, but at 147. Now, there's a couple of reasons why Terence Crawford is doing this. Terence Crawford.
When Crawford initially decided to relocate, many people anticipated reaching junior middleweight him to follow the same route that led to. His prior success has dominated a belts are unified by weight class, and make a name for himself as the man to pursue. His career path has been all that, so he won the title at 135 pounds, but he departed the division prior to his assertion. Uncontested standing at 140 pounds, he didn't just win titles that he dominated, turning into the division's unchallenged champion when he was untouchable, and at 147 pounds, He once again created history by becoming uncontested at welterweight, defeating a formidable foe in Errol Spence Jr. Their eagerly awaited 2023 matchup.
Right now, man, it's like feeling that's kind of hard to explain, being back over on the U.S. soil and then coming in to some good wins. When I was over there, got some good wins before I was left to go over there. I got the best win, in probably history. So I'm gonna feel good, man. The rematch is gonna happen. Mark my words.
Considering his recent welterweight success, many conjectured that Crawford's upcoming, it would make sense for him to attempt taking home junior middleweight titles, bringing the division together and then protecting, ultimately, a man of Crawford's legacy, variety of skill set and performance history, could really sprint at 154 pounds. But Crawford's perspective on the issue was distinct from the presumptions of when Crawford made his move. The boxing world, many believed he was ramping up to 154 pounds, ready for another uncontested run. But, in an open interview, Crawford personally expressed his lack of interest in remaining in the junior middleweight division.
Has he exercised his immediate rematch clause?
I don't know if it's gonna be at 54 or 47, but I'm sure he's probably gonna push the weight up. But there's no gonna be no change in the decision. The performance still is gonna be the same.
He rejected the notion of consolidating 154. According to Albs, the division did not provide the kind of fights that leave a lasting history, that he wasn't looking for Crawford at all. When asked if he planned to unite, he answered, "There are many excellent fighters weighing 154 pounds. However, there aren't many legacy battles. If I defeat Bakram at 154, they're going to Fondora had already asked, who is Bakram?" Been completely taken aback by Crawford's remarks. May surprise some people, particularly considering the skill in the fighters in the junior middleweight division. Similar to Jaron Boots Andenis and Gerald Charlo, Brian Castano and others have created a stir in the conflict and a confrontation with any of. They would undoubtedly be well known in the athletics.
Now, there's a couple of reasons why Terence Crawford is doing this. Terence Crawford wants to go after Canelo or Charlo because in reality, in his mind and in everybody else's mind, except Errol Spence and Errol Spence Jr. fans, he beat Errol Spence more than convincingly, which is there's no need for rematches. There's no need for...
But for Crawford, these games aren't of the same importance as other difficulties he may encounter when Bakra and others. Perhaps Fendor or Martazalev would be deserving. Adversaries Crawford's evaluation of the separation implies he believes there's not enough celebrity endorsements. Story to develop in order to motivate him to spend a lot of time on 154 pounds. The actual rationale behind Crawford's choice. Must refrain from engaging in legacy battles at 154 lies, in his more comprehensive view of his profession, and the unrelenting criticism he has encountered during his travels. Crawford has been among the most harshly condemned and underappreciated boxing champions.
Spence, yo. I'm excited for this, man. It gives him a chance to hell out. Yo, and a hill Errol Spence. Anybody.
He has battled in a manner that has elevated him to the top of the sport. But observers and supporters have kept questioning whether he was calling his opponents into doubt and critiquing his degree of rivalry, regardless of he succeeded in showing that there was always someone who discovered a way to discredit him in some respects. Crawford's annoyance is based on that ongoing critique, a feeling that whatever he does, he will never fully appease his critics. But Crawford's annoyance is not regarding the criticism alone. It's about that he wishes to leave a legacy.
Individual, I feel as if, he would go back to the drawing board. He would come back stronger. He'll come back more hungrier, and he'll try to fix the things that, he needed to fix to make the fight look different in the second time than in the first time. I do believe that, but that's the only thing that I can actually say.
This specifically, the welterweight division has become a hive of creativity in recent Crawford has demonstrated his worth in a few years, and repeatedly demonstrating that he is the finest in the division. But there is a problem regarding the junior middleweight class. Yes, he seems uninterested in that. Would weigh 154 pounds and be an excellent fighter. But he believes there is less potential for a quest to build a legacy there, while some would contend that the difficulties of 154. It might have been a simple test. Crawford is now setting his higher goals, and his aspirations are evidently. Crawford has said that following weighing his options, the only battle that genuinely thrills him in the future years is difficult at 168 pounds in comparison to Canelo Alvarez. Of course.
Concessions to have to get this fight done. He gave up a lot of money on his side to have this fight at 147. If you look at the contract, this is a sport of contracts. Chris, you know this. You have signed contracts. You have tried to get out of contracts. The winner gets to dictate the weight. The loser got to put the rematch clause or put the rematch.
The go to 168 pounds in a variety of ways, including the battle that raises Crawford's. Canelo's legacy to a whole other level has long been considered to be among the top boxers in terms of weight in the world poses a problem that Crawford can't resist. This is the battle that could become more concrete. His legacy with a match that would conclude his career in which they defeated the most renowned individual in the sport today. There aren't many legacy fights at 154. Sigurd Talk was informed by Crawford, but when it comes to Canelo, that's the battle I desire. I've been craving that fight for a long time, and I will eventually make it occur if I deal with him. Then that's how I will establish my legacy.
I don't want to see. I want to see Bud be great, but what better buffer to see if Bud's ready at 68 than the EJ rematch of 54 and 60? And how exciting would it be to watch Errol Spence he walks at 190. I'm 185 pounds right now. I'm 5'11". To think of me cutting
Clearly, Crawford has arrived at a period in his professional life when he is never longer worried about the views of critics that he will not pursue battles only to please others or to instead show the doubter something. He is concentrating on what is most important to. He is causing the most significant fights. Crawford's legacy is no longer inspired by the same factors that drove. It's not about him early in his career. Titles to demonstrate that he is the best, which for him is accepting. In a battle, Canelo will not only oppose him, but will also be the pivotal point in his career.
He's gonna knock my first because I don't want us personally. We talking about what we want to see. I don't want to see it because I know what it's gonna look like. The same as it looked last time.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Errol Spence wasn't the same.
What was wrong with him?
He looked slow. He looked he looked sluggish.
Why?
I can't tell you. I wasn't in
At
camp.
the division, he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him. I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down for being at 140.
As Crawford approaches to confront, at 168 pounds, Canelo poses a serious risk. In boxing, Canelo is a huge figure and his super middleweight experience, in addition to his amazing skill set, makes him a dangerous foe for anybody. However, this is the kind of difficulty Crawford flourishes because it's the type of battle that can help him rise above being just another outstanding combatant to a victory over a renowned figure in sports. Canelo would transform Crawford into a real well-known not only in boxing, but also in the broader realm of sports.
Heard anything yet, and like I said before, it's in the contract, so it's not if I'm open to it or not. It's what's in the contract, and Errol gave me an opportunity and a shot at becoming the first male boxer, undisputed, in any division in the 4-belt era, and I honor that. And if he was to come to me or activate his.
However, Crawford's choice involves more than that. More than just the wealth and fame of his whole career has been characterized by a drive to challenge oneself, and advancing to engage Canelo in combat is the final test. Weighing 168 pounds, Crawford will have to modify his training, nutrition, as well as how he approaches the sport to compete at the greatest level possible. But Crawford who has consistently shown willingness to accept any task without being discouraged by Canelo's strength and size advantages, may